to take you to the issue of the Cbus allegations, where it's been alleged that Cbus has not been able to make insurance claims in a timely manner, to people who are dealing with a shocking death in their family, or people who have been seriously injured at work. And there's great public interest in why this is happening. And so I guess I should start by asking you about the chair of the Cbus Fund, Mr. Wayne Swan, has been going on to the Today Show on Channel 9, and he has said on the Today Show that, quote, the cause of this lay principally with a third-party operator. So, I mean, what do you say to Mr. Swan, who is wanting to blame the Cbus non-payment of death benefits and other payments on your company?
Thank you for the question, Chair. So, as I said, and I refer back to my opening statement, the insurance claims process is a pretty complex process, and it involves, on an end-to-end basis, multiple stakeholders. We also operate under very clear business rules that each fund provides us. Each fund has a different service level agreement that we sign with, which measure different things and provide different guidelines in terms of what the SLAs look like. It is very difficult to point fingers at one party or the other, to be really honest. I think the reality of the issue is, as I've said before, is that we need to have clear standards, and clear standards which basically say what are the cycle times end to end. Once those cycle times are determined, I think there's clear expectations that can be set in terms of what claimants and beneficiaries during a very, very vulnerable time in their lives can expect people to turn around. What documentation is that they need? What information is it that they need to provide to make sure that in an expedient time their claims can be considered?
Yeah.
But also ensuring that there is binding nominations,
Sure.
Which will definitely help the expediency of the process.
Sure. And then we had an opportunity to ask Mr. Swan at the Senate hearings, and I asked him whether it was appropriate to blame your organisation, Link. And Mr. Swan said, quote, I think there is a challenge with Link. It's a subject of public discussion, not just for Cbus, but for a number of other funds, end quote. So effectively, again, on the record of the Senate and in national TV, the Cbus Fund is blaming your organisation. So why do you think Cbus is seeking to blame your organisation for their judgments?
I probably can't speak on behalf of what the chair and Mr. Swan is his point of view. That is his point of view, and I respect that. I think from our perspective, what I can say is that we have strong relationships with and long tenure relationships with, as I said, 20 superannuation funds where we do provide end-to-end administration services, in most cases lasting for more than 10 years. And yes, time and again, as there are in large operational areas, there are challenges, but we have always worked together to ensure that we can remediate them. We can look at where the opportunities are for correction and modification, and then we can ensure that we can deliver the right outcomes as per our contractual agreements.
Okay, so do you agree with Mr. Swan or not?
Look, I think given the matter of ASIC investigation and the current open investigation that is happening, and the fact that we have also provided evidence to ASIC, I would respectfully decline to answer that in this forum if I can, please.
Well, I guess I'm asking you whether you think that you are to blame.
I think, from my perspective, Chair, the only thing I would say is that, we have submitted a lot of evidence as part of the ASIC investigation. We have also had a lot of conversations as per the requirement of the regulators, And given it's an open investigation, I probably would not like to make a public statement about where the apportionment of blame lies. I think that is for ASIC to determine as the regulator.
Okay, because the issue here is that we are investigating this as a matter of public interest on behalf of the Australian people. So generally we would expect a witness to answer a question unless you have some particular reason. So again, my question is, what do you make of the statements that you are to blame for this very material problem? Because these are matters which may be subject to an ASIC inquiry, but they're also dealing with legislation that Parliament has passed to enact this compulsory savings scheme and to embed default insurance in it. So if it's okay for a chair of a fund to blame an administrator for something, then it's a very big deal. So I guess what I'm looking to get from you, Mr. Bhatia, is what do you make of these statements that have been made publicly blaming your organisation?
Chair, I'll just note that the witness has answered that question twice in the same terms, and it's generally understood to be an acceptable answer that something is in front of a regulator or in front of a legal process. I'm happy to have a private meeting, Chair, if you'd like to. Well,
that's not how the standing order works. So I'll ask Mr. Bhatia to answer the question in relation to, do you have a particular answer about being blamed for the failure to pay claims in a timely manner?
Look, I think, I would say, Chair, again, that from my perspective, given the open ASIC investigation, I would not like to comment on apportionment of blame at this point in time.
All right. Well, we won't have a private meeting now because I don't want to waste the committee's time, but we may have to revisit this with you because you need to make a particular claim under the Senate standing orders. You don't have, unfortunately, the right to not answer. But I don't want to waste the committee's time now because we have limited time with you, Mr. Bhatia. So, how many funds do you service at the moment?
We service 20 superannuation funds when it comes to administration.
Okay. And who makes the decision to pay a claim? Is it you? Is it the insurer? Is it the trustee? How does it work?
There are certain delegations that through our service level agreements and through our contractual agreements that we have in terms of collecting information, etc. But we don't make final decisions on any claims. Our work is, as an administrator, to collect information and to pass that back to the trustees and the insurers to make the claims, to make the decisions.
Okay, so a spokesperson for the Link Group gave comments to the AFR about these matters in response to what Mr. Swan said. And do you know about this?
Yes, I do, Chair. Okay,
you do. Okay, so you're happy to give comments to the Australian Financial Review, it seems, about these matters, but maybe not to the Senate. So it says here that the decision you said, or maybe your spokesperson said, that the decision-making authority rests with the trustee and insurers, and we operate under extensive business rules that vary for each fund. So who is ultimately responsible if claims are not being paid in a timely manner?
So as I said in my previous answer, Chair, we do operate under business rules, and I did make the same statement here as well. We operate under business rules that are provided as part of our contractual agreements. We don't make decisions on the payment or the beneficiary. We provide all the information that we are asked to provide to the insurers and the trustees, who then make the decision.
Okay. Did you have any meetings with Cbus before this public hearing in relation to this hearing?
No, I did not. Okay.
So they haven't suggested to you that they didn't really want you to get into these matters on the public record?
No, they did not.
Okay. So then ultimately, what is the average processing time you have for all super funds?
Yeah, the processing time is a bit challenging for me to say. I'll probably ask Dee to comment on where we are, because we measure different service level tasks as opposed to end-to-end cycle time. But if I can ask Ms. McGrath to answer that question.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Chair, it's specifically related to death claims. We are currently paying the majority of death claims, probably around 70% within a 5-month time frame. That does vary depending on the type of claim and the complexity. And the time that it takes for some claimants, obviously, who are in a very vulnerable state, to be able to gather information and provide that to us. So it does vary depending on the claim and the time frames associated with gathering the information.
So you pay 70% within 5 months?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the numbers for Cbus?
I couldn't give you exact numbers, Senator, but that would be an average across all of our clients, and I wouldn't expect that they would vary greatly.
Okay, I'll just rotate the call now. Thanks very much. So I guess I'm interested in what's different in your arrangements with Cbus to other funds. Is there anything different?
All our arrangements, Chair, are very different to each other. So I would classify that there is no standard arrangement that we have across any of our large clients.
Yeah,
they are all pretty bespoke, and the arrangements, the service level, the standards are actually co-built with the funds over months, and sometimes it takes a long period of time to determine what is it that they want for their cohort of members.
So with the service level agreement with Cbus, is there a longer timetable provided to make assessments on claims?
As we said, Chair, we don't make the assessment on claims. We ensure that we collect the documentation and then we provide that information to the parties as the representative from TAL said before. The assessment is made by the insurer, and then the trustees decide in terms of the beneficiary payments, because it depends on who the beneficiary is and if there are binding nominations or non-binding nominations, if they have lapsed or they haven't lapsed, and so.
So what's best practice then, from your point of view? What would be best practice?
I think having clear standards on end-to-end, Senator, is I think something that is going to be a great thing that this inquiry can highlight. Ensuring that we have clear standards on end-to-end cycle times that all funds and service providers can adhere to, that regulators can monitor, and most importantly, that Australians in their vulnerable times can expect and understand what their responsibilities are as well. And
is that end-to-end standard or timetables and the like, does that exist now with your arrangements with Cbus?
It doesn't sit at all for any of the funds at the moment, and it doesn't sit across the industry either.
Right. So there's no timetables in service level agreements?
Not for end-to-end cycle times, because there are different parties involved for different things. And also, there is uncertainty in terms of, by when the information comes back, solicitors needing information, death certificates or understanding of medical certificates, etc.
Well, do any funds have end-to-end standards?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know, Ms. McGrath, whether that's untrue or whether you know anything different.
The funds would have their standards that they, I guess they sort of, target themselves. But there is no industry standard across the entire industry.
Okay, so what would be a good example of a timetable that would, if it was in place, would have avoided all these people having to go through this anguish, like 10,000 people?
Thanks, Senator. I think over the last several weeks, the regulator, has come out and clarified some expectations, which is that, for non-complex claims that, that those are paid within a 4 to 5 month period.
Okay. So your view is you don't need law reform, you just need the super funds to set out better agreements with their service providers.
Senator, I wouldn't contextualise it as such. I think that the industry has served Australians working and retiring very well, and everyone
clearly not. That's not right. That's not right. We wouldn't be having this inquiry if that was true.
I think the industry is striving to ensure that they continue to do better for Australians.
Mr. Bhatia, what do you think about this? Should there be law reform, or can the industry solve this?
I think that the industry, working with the other stakeholders, including regulators, can come up with a code of practice, which is what other sectors of financial institutions have done. And if you have a collective code of practice that the industry can adopt, then everybody can adhere to it.
Yeah, well, surely you have a better idea of what would be best practice. Surely you have some idea of how this could be done better.
What we can definitely say that we need to do better collectively as a sector, because as you rightly pointed out, there are many Australians who, in their vulnerable most times, haven't had the best experience or outcomes.
Yeah. Well, look, finally, Mr. Wayne Swan, who has said a lot about your organisation, also said more broadly recently that there was a paucity of competent administrators more broadly. So what do you think he's getting at here?
Again, I don't want to understand his viewpoint or what he meant by that. But what I could say is that this is a highly competitive environment. We have local and international players in this market, who provide a plethora of options for administration. And we saw one of them, highlighted last week in the press, an American company as well, who has got a significant experience in the market. And there are many other organizations who do that. Plus, there are software solutions that some of the funds adopt to be able to do certain parts of the value chain in-house that they believe are more precious and more valuable to their members.
Okay.
So I believe that there is a modular option. A lot of options are there in the market.
Okay. So you don't agree that there is a lack of competent administrators?
I don't agree.
Okay. So you have answered that question, but just for completeness, you did not answer my question earlier to respond to Mr. Wayne Swan's comments, which have slammed your organisation's credibility. Now, you don't want to answer that question. I just need to understand exactly why you don't want to answer that question, because there is a process we need to now go through. So why don't you want to answer that question?
Chair, because there is a live ASIC investigation and a live court case, which is in the legal matter between ASIC and Cbus. We are clearly an interested party in that. And we have been actively involved in that, giving evidence to the regulator in the investigation. So I would not want to preempt the decision of either the regulator or the legal system on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Bhatia. We'll come back to you on that. And we thank you for your evidence today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I wish the committee members a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.